Justice and peace to each and every one of you. This is the world's top cop and your security consultant with news uncuffed. In Memphis, Tennessee, you all heard and are aware of what happened of a mass shooting. A 19-year-old Ezekiel Kelly went on a killing spree. While doing so, he recorded it live. And without a doubt, let this be known, I don't know for sure because I didn't see anything that indicating, but I can pretty much tell you unless I'm told otherwise, this man was not high on drugs. He was in his right mind. And if he was, it wasn't enough drugs to have him do what he did after rapping, had enough mind withal to get on live while having a loaded weapon, and he took innocent lives while rapping, while recording. Let that sink in. And at the same time, after the first victim was taken from this life, all efforts from the law enforcement agencies there and the efforts of the citizens there should have immediately jumped into the reaction mode in the way that could have prevented more lives from being taken. And I, as your world's top cop, have in place things that can be immediately implemented to unify citizens in every state, in every city, with the communications correctly with every law enforcement agency to make sure that every crime that is committed and the criminal that commits this crime after a crime is committed, if it has not been caught proactively by the things in place, because there's no way in the world that we living in, and knowing what I know from the spiritual aspects of it, crime is going to get worse than what we have just witnessed. But I'm here to tell you this. To combat against this kind of crime or any crime can be done in a new way that must be done and can be done, because I'm here to tell you can be done with CPIIA. But we're going to break that down as we go into this, and we're going to hear first from Mayor Jim Strickland as he addresses the citizens of Memphis and the country regarding what we had to witness in the lives of these citizens who were terrorized by a 19-year-old who took one location and went from one location to another location, and between locations killed, shot, injured, and took vehicles, carjacked citizens who were in their own state of mind, unaware, but it did not have to be that way.
I am angry. I am angry for them, and I'm angry for our citizens who had to shelter in place for their own safety until this suspect was caught. This is no way for us to live, and it is not acceptable. The people of our city were confronted with the type of violence no one should have to face.
Now, I first want to say in this first part of what the mayor said, there's a few key words. Angry, shelter in place are two key words. Let this anger every citizen enough to come together, not just in a way to talk about the crimes and to give the efforts to do the necessary, ordinary things that should be done, which is go to the legislators, your leaders in every city. That's the normal routine that should take place. But what else? There has to be something more, and it has to come from citizens in the way law enforcement are engaging with citizens to go after suspects more effectively, quicker, to save life. And I have it available right now. And for every citizen to be confined, terrorized, and in fear, not to live and abide normally in society because a criminal decides to commit crimes and take life after the first attempt or act of a crime is enough for every citizen to come together in a way without even knowing each other to know what to do to make sure that criminal is put in cuffs, communicated in the right way with law enforcement to get to the location in a quicker way to save life. And you do that with the implementation as your world top cop that is in place to make sure what happened in Memphis will not happen again, because if it's not as before and history repeats itself, it will get worse than what we just seen in Memphis from this 19-year-old who just had 2 weapons that were found in the vehicle that he carjacked. And I want you to understand what I'm telling you, because this is no joke. Now, this next part, we're going to hear a little bit more, and then we're going to hear some words from the chief on the breakdown of the time frame of what happened.
We should not be terrorized by anyone. Anyone who wants to strike fear in our hearts and take away what we love about Memphis. We must unite around this principle and stand up to the challenge of violent crime in our city.
On September 7th, 2022, at 12:56 a.m., officers responded to a shooting. The male was pronounced deceased on the scene. At 4:38 p.m., officers responded to a shooting. Officers located a male victim in his vehicle with multiple gunshot wounds. He was pronounced deceased on the scene. At 4:40 p.m., officers responded to a shooting at Norris Road. At 5:59, officers responded to a shooting in the 4000 block of Jackson Avenue. Officers located a male with a gunshot wound. At 6:12 p.m., we received information from a concerned citizen that suspect was on Zeke Huncho's Facebook Live. At this time, the Memphis Police Department launched a citywide search for the assailant. We deployed additional manpower and asked for assistance from partner agencies to locate Ezekiel Kelly. We began to utilize our social media platforms to alert citizens and contact our local media agencies to alert our citizens of the impending danger. At that time, we also recommended that they shelter in place.
Okay, now, if this suspect would have had 3 years served, correct, these lives would still be present and there would be no injuries of the other 3. But what would have happened after he would have gotten out, as he did after 11 or so months of serving time in prison for a lesser charge? What then? And he states about uniting. And he focused on the issues within what's going on between the judges, the pleas, the court procedures that take place that have an impact of what's going on in Memphis and in every state. But regardless of what's going on within the courts, law enforcement must do things differently, because this is an example of so many others of the efforts that they did was outstanding on what they had and how they confronted this kind of terrorism from this 19-year-old. But you must understand that this was a 19-year-old, and he had 2 weapons, using probably just that one, and he used multiple vehicles at different locations. And from the first shooting to the next shooting to the next location, from one carjacking, from the next carjacking, I want you to understand that there was a breakdown between knowing what to do between the citizens. It was a breakdown, and there was no actions, no procedures in place on how to communicate what happened from the first shooting to get to the citizens of quicker and in the right way. And then once that was going to be communicated, which law enforcement did by going on air and getting the word out, there were more victims and more injuries that had already taken place. Hours had already passed, and the city was left powerless by one suspect. And that must not happen again, and the solutions is in place with CPIIA implementations by yours truly, the world's top cop, before you, eye to eye, as I speak to you. This does not have to happen the way it did, and it can stop. And the crimes and this chaos and these criminals who's running rampant all across this country does not have to be the way that it is. And I'm purposed in life, and I want you to hear me. You don't have to know who I am. You can fact check me, pull my name up, and be amazed by what God had did through me at locating, proactively, quickly, eliminating and removing dangerous criminals off the streets so quickly that as soon as I got out of roll call, I could spot and identify dangerous criminals with loaded weapons, all kinds of drugs, and put them in custody by the thousands. And if you don't believe it, look it up. I am what God has given to the world in this day and time to give to you and every citizen what is needed to unify together when it is time to take the right actions, to communicate effectively, and to act and work with police agencies the right way, the way it's supposed to be, to take care of business and remove dangerous criminals off the streets, regardless of the fact that how long they've been out on the streets or not makes no difference. The point is to save life, to put these criminals in jail and to give citizens the ability to live life and to be confident to take action safely in the right actions to make sure that no criminal victimizes, terrorizes citizens across this country. And it's what CPIIA implementations, ladies and gentlemen. Time is always crucial. And once the first shooting took place, I can tell you, no one expected for it to be multiple killings in a shooting spree after the first death. And how do I know that? Because the actions that was taken was a normal routine from law enforcement, not to say anything wrong about it, because it took over 3 hours after the first killing, this suspect committed the second killing. And after the second killing, it took between that 3 hours for the second killing and a total of over 4 to 5 or so hours between that time frame that law enforcement had to get extra help from outside law enforcement and implement stay in shelter emergency state for the citizens in Memphis. Every killing, no matter when and what time it is, must be taken in such a way that if the first suspect or any suspect who commits a killing or any crime, a dangerous crime such as that, certainly all efforts should be taken until that suspect is removed off the streets as quick as possible. And how do you do that? You only do that with a new era, a new way of approaching these kinds of crimes. And it involves a new era, a new way with law enforcement and citizens knowing how to react and respond and work together to ensure that a criminal who does this is caught quicker and more effectively. And that's with CPIIA that should have been and could be and must be implemented in the way now to ensure that what we've seen doesn't happen again. It seems as if I'm repeating myself because I want you to understand how important it is, and when it is implemented, it can be implemented in a way it doesn't take enough brain cells in us to understand what is needed, because it's broken down and placed in a way to make sure that it can be implemented and only effected and perfected more and more as time goes on and everybody gets on one accord on knowing the ins and outs and what to do and how to respond and work together between citizens and police to save life. Let's go deeper. For criminals as this, he's 19 years old. So the issues is coming from home. The problems is coming from where he lays his head at. What is he seeing at home? What is he being taught at home? Who is feeding him the right things in his mind and spirit when he's troubled and confused at home? Is his father in his life? Is his mother in his life? Who is raising him and who raised him and what caused him to become what he is now, facing a death sentence? CPIIA works with and knows how to work with children before they get to this point, like this 19-year-old, work effectively as servants, experts who will work with parents, families, school districts, institutions to resolve what is needed to make sure that children will not become what Ezekiel Kelly has expressed and have committed. It's too late now because he took life. But now that he's still alive, even with this, his soul is now important because his life will now be forever behind bars. And it does not have to be for your child or for the next male, the next female, the next young mind who sees as if there's no hope or way out because there is no resources or the correct ones with the care, patience, and love to deal and steer them in the direction to not be as what we just witnessed by Ezekiel Kelly and with CPIIA in communities and in homes. We have things in place to work with kids, the youth, sons and daughters throughout weekly basis, mentoring, strategizing, providing the resources needed, checking up on with the school systems, working with the school districts. Everyone must play a part, working with law enforcement agencies in the right way to serve communities without showing up in aggressive manners to do law enforcement, but to be servants as law enforcements. All of these mechanisms and many more must be in play so that more of 19-year-olds will not end up doing what Ezekiel Kelly did. And it all goes back to the home, working and implementing things with parents, with CPIIA, to make sure that the next youth or youths who are on the edge, even as I speak, have no hope, who are taking their lives and taking other people's lives and are injecting their bodies with all kinds of poisons that affect the spirit, mind, and soul to lead them in a direction. If we do not do the things that's needed to save the youth, the young men and women, in a direction not towards the crime and danger, but to productive citizens, and CPIIA has these things in place. And you all see the number now. I want you to text the words CPIIA from the number that you see. And we're going to get back with you all as quick as we can to show you all and get you all on the pathways necessary to be prepared for things that is yet going to come because of the judicial system and the family structures are so damaged. Let the professions who's supposed to work with the judicial system work with them, and we as the citizens work together with law enforcement the right way. And with CPIIA, it begins now. And if you haven't put the digits in now, CPIIA in your phone, time is valuable and lives are being lost even as I speak that doesn't have to be. And a citizen speaks on the behalf and tells you the truth of what I already know, and we know, who have enough understanding of realizing the condition and state we are in as a people, as a country, dealing with this regarding our young men and women who are choosing a dangerous path that must be reverted and dealt with in a way to reverse this path of crime.
Because you have a lot of angry young people. They're angry that their mothers and fathers have to work and not raising them. They're latchkey kids. They take themselves to school and home. They feed themselves. Parents, all we do is pay for the bills. So there's going to be more. And he was probably just the youngest, but it's going to get younger because a lot of them have no guidance. They have no one that's willing.
You see, we all have to come together, because crimes and deaths has no race, no economic, religious actions to it. Crime targets victims who are human. And we are the citizens, law-abiding citizens, must be able to come against this without fear and work together, and that's with CPIIA. Let's do it now. We don't have to wait. Let's work together, and over the time of September and moving forward, with CPIIA being implemented in school systems, within homes, within law enforcement, within the business structures of strategic security, CSI, we will see a dramatic change. As your world's top cop, I'm here to tell you, you will see the changes in your city. With me and you together, it can, it will, it must. Together, it will be so.